Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Thanks, everybody who's joining us. So I guess who do we have? Just Deb online? That's it. Anyways, thank everybody for joining us. I'd like to call this Planning and Development Committee meeting to order on February 1st, 2023 at 9:01. Recommend approval of the agenda. Recommend that the Planning and Development Committee meeting agenda for February 1st, 2023 be adopted as circulated. We have a mover? Seconder? Oh, I forgot to ask any late items? No late items? Oh, go ahead, Sarah.
There was that one that you asked to be added?
Yes, and it was already added, right? The Crown Land one and the official community plan. Okay, thank you. All right, so mover and seconder, all in favor? Okay. I don't think I've met you before.
We have met.
Yeah.
It's Kenny.
Oh,
You're Kenny.
last time I saw you, Kenny, you didn't have a beard, so
Oh, it was a little longer last time.
you looked familiar and I go, God, I better.
This is
introduction.
Kenny that you-
Everybody's met Kenny?
Yeah. Okay.
Great.
Hi, Kenny.
Yeah, pleased to meet you. Thanks. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Don't be afraid to shout out. Okay, approval of the minutes. Recommended that the minutes of the Planning and Development Committee meeting held on January 18th, 2023 be adopted. And I have a mover.
I didn't read them.
Sorry,
Okay, I'll.
everybody beat him? Okay, Ron. Second, Deb. Okay, all in favor? All righty. Okay, we're gonna have a development service update. That's probably gonna be Scott. Or
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. The application list we've updated, removed a couple. You want to advance the slide, Pepe? Yeah. And nothing really new, since we removed some of them that were considered previously. We still have some that are hanging on 1005 Riverside. That was a DP that was considered by this group and forwarded to council, and that application, they have chosen not to move forward with it. We're just waiting to hear the official word on that. 17.
Sorry, which 105 or
1005 Riverside.
is that the one right there across from, I guess, Moose's that they can?
No.
No, I'm just trying to get my bearings on it.
Yeah, so the one across from Moose's was, I think, 9.
Yeah, it's like a,
27.
Yeah, 927. That one, that permit's been issued.
yeah.
They, maybe an update, they have, at the back of the property, there's a covenant area that is in favor of the strata across the road. So they're trying to get that covenant removed and then it'll open up
Okay,
a portion of that land. So that's what they're doing right now. That's why they haven't got a building permit.
and just so then 1005 Riverside, that is.
Is it?
Churches.
Yeah, where the church is, that little church.
Oh, okay.
They had a plan for 14 multifamily dwelling units. But I don't think that's moving, like, I'm 99% sure that's not moving forward. They're working with somebody else now, so but yeah, we haven't heard the official word yet.
Okay.
1705 Hillier Road East, that's a development permit for the mobile home park out there, where they want to change their landscaping. And yeah, they just haven't given us any information on what they want to do. I don't think they're even sure what they want to do, so it's landscaping, so maybe we'll wait till spring on that one.
Daryl?
Yeah.
I haven't talked to him for a long time.
Any questions on the other ones?
I could just add on that Riverside one. That's that one that Kevin's now working on with.
Right.
Oh, okay. That's what I was, yeah, right.
He called me and I had sent him to you about the floodplain.
Yeah.
And how he's, because that's a tough thing to do for what he's planning on doing, so he has to do foundations for every one of those, so just to get it up. You know, and he can transition it a little bit, maybe.
Because of the floodplain requirements.
Yeah, he's about a meter, over a meter, low there.
So does that mean the whole area there's a meter?
Oh, yeah, the top of the, Riverside Avenue is
Yeah.
roughly 350.
Yeah,
Our floodplain is 351.1, I think it is.
Yeah.
So he's a little over a meter low.
so to build anything there, everybody will have to build up.
You know, I guess if you want to keep your switch, your hot water heater and all your electrical and everything above the floodplain,
Yeah,
White Pines did, some of
Right.
them did. And, you know, some of them have their electrical, below, but yeah, you got to keep your everything above. So,
that's interesting. I didn't know that. So like, but those condos that were built down there at one point, so sorry, I'm just asking a question. That was before maybe these new regulations or no, they had to do the same thing.
at the bottom of the floor joist is 351, so they're all,
Ah.
all of them have underground parking, so.
Right.
Come up,
Okay, got it.
so,
Okay, up to speed. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
okay. No, it looks good, Scott. Don't think there's anything else I had on my list there.
Okay.
All righty. Okay, carrying on to new business, British Columbia Energy Step Code. Who's gonna take that?
Mr. Chair.
Great. It's Kenny.
Good morning, everybody. This presentation is regarding the upcoming changes to the provincial building code in relation to the BC Energy Step Code. So this is just a quick overview. If anybody has any questions, a little bit deeper dive, by all means, after we're done, ask away. So to begin with, the background is the province of British Columbia first introduced energy efficiency as a requirement in the BC Building Code in 2008. Since that beginning, designers and builders have had the option to take either a prescriptive or performance approach to code compliance. The province then enacted the BC Energy Step Code as regulation in April 6, 2017, with the goal of reducing greenhouse gas emissions by achieving net zero ready homes as a minimum performance requirement for Part 9 buildings, residential buildings by 2032. The BC Energy Step Code will be mandatory compliance path for the BC Building Code. This will be a 5-step approach to improve the energy efficiency of all new construction by doubling the overall performance requirements every 5 years. Currently, we're on step 2, which is 10% more efficient than the prescriptive requirements that were in the BC Building Code that came into effect in 2014. Step 3 will be 20% more efficient. Step 4, 40%, with the end goal being net zero ready. And step 5. Step 3 is set to come into effect sometime within 2023. Currently, the province has not given us a deadline on when that's going to come in. It was originally supposed to be at the end of 2022, and then they pushed it. So right now, the implementation date is a little bit up in the air. Here's how the BC Energy Step Code works. To achieve the lower step, building design professionals and trades can rely on conventional building designs with careful air sealing practices and incrementally incorporate some key elements in design, building envelope, and mechanical systems. Builders and designers are currently only recommended to collaborate with energy advisors to select the most cost-effective way to meet requirements. Part 9 buildings, step 4 marks the beginning of the upper steps. To achieve the upper steps, builders and designers will need to adopt a more integrated approach to building design and may need to incorporate more substantial changes in building design, layout, framing techniques, mechanical selection, or system selections, and materials. These techniques and materials can be more costly and challenging without additional training and expertise. The top step of the BC Energy Step Code equates to net zero ready building, which is up to 80% more efficient than current typical new building. In 2032, this level of performance will be required in all new buildings. The benefits of Step Code. Occupant benefits. Buildings built to higher energy efficiency standards. Buildings built to higher energy efficient standards provide multiple benefits to those who live, work, and learn within them. Occupants often prefer these buildings as they improve comfort by better managing temperature, Improve health by better managing fresh air throughout the building, reduce noise through better insulation and air tightness, and would require less energy, helping the occupants lower their energy bills. Environmental benefits are based on increased performance of the homes, which play a key role in reducing greenhouse gas emissions, which will help the province meet their climate target goals. Economic benefits. The province of British Columbia hopes that the BC Energy Step Code will make the province's building sector more competitive and potentially open up new economic development opportunities. Our province is already a green building design and construction leader, boasting some of the highest performing buildings in North America. Industry benefits. The BC Energy Step Code provides builders a welcome level of consistency on energy efficiency between local governments. The code provides flexibility to pursue innovative, creative, and cost-effective solutions and allows them to incorporate leading-edge technologies as they become available. The standard sets out a consistent path for future updates to the BC Building Code, giving builders a sense of what lies ahead on energy efficiency. Local government benefits. For local governments, the BC Energy Step Code offers a simple and efficient set of standards for building energy performance. It nicely aligns with many of the existing energy performance programs that builders are currently familiar with. It may also help local governments achieve their climate action goals. Although there are many positives regarding the upcoming changes to BC Energy Step Code, there are a few trade-offs, such as apparently I lost less. Increased construction costs, additional education requirements, and design limitations. In the upper steps, the designers have to take into account a lot more of the direction windows are facing, the mechanical systems that are selected based on their energy performance levels, as well as corners, how many corners there are to minimize thermal bridging, things along those lines. Missing a page. So what has been done to prepare? Public information and education seminars have been provided by both the Shuswap community construction industry as well as BC Housing. There are additional education opportunities available through BC Housing that are free and open to the public as well as the province does have quite a bit of information on their BC Energy Step Code website. Staff in the district here have been preparing through education seminars through the WABC, along with other Step Code councils and many other groups along those lines. So, if council chooses to adopt an area, one of the options available right now is early implementation that would be up to council. So one of the things we're looking for today is whether or not the PDC would like to submit a recommendation to council to look at adopting the BC Energy Step Code. If council chooses to adopt into early implementation, it'll begin a 6-month public consultation process. And if a council and the public do agree that this is something that we would like to see, then implementation will be achieved through changes to the building bylaw. We are currently in the process of amending the bylaw to make a few changes here, so we'll be bringing that in the not so distant future here. I do anticipate the province will release an actual implementation date sometime in the next 6 to 8 months. As a summary, in 2023, Step 3 of the BC Energy Step Code will be implemented on a provincial level for all Part 9 structures. Energy efficiency requirements change from prescriptive to performance-based. The involvement of certified energy advisors will be required for all new construction, and further communication with public and stakeholders will take place throughout the rest of this year until the implementation period. Any questions?
Lots. Lots.
That is
Lots.
That's great, Kenny. Thanks for, yes, a lot of changes coming our way for sure. Okay, anybody have?
Yeah, plenty. Thanks, Mr. Chair. This looks like they're kind of following roughly the LEED standard. So I know a little bit about that, like so none of these steps have been implemented yet, right?
currently we're on step 2.
Step 2,
Yes,
okay.
which is still a prescriptive based approach.
Mhm.
Step 3, which will be a performance based.
And then when you say prescriptive versus performance, you mean it's a little optional.
Well, so what it means is the prescriptive based approach means that the building code lays out exactly what needs to be done for every single for the pieces of energy efficiency. So
Right.
required to have this R value in your overall assembly, things along those lines. The performance based is saying you're now looking at the entire house. So the certified energy advisor would have to model the home to determine what level of performance it's going to meet. And so that takes into account all of the window designs, the wall, the insulation values of the walls. So it allows a little bit of trade-off in certain situations where you can't achieve a full insulation requirement in this wall. You're going to make it up over here or in the attic. As well as that you now have to take into account everything, right? So prescriptive based is just here's what you need to do. Performance is what do you want to do and how are you going to get there? And then you just have to have that whole home meet a certain energy performance level.
And then they have to verify that it does.
That's correct.
And if it doesn't,
That's the energy advisor's involvement. So they would do it's recommended that they would do a mid-construction blower door test, which at that point, they'll check the air tightness of the building and they'll make sure that it's meeting the modeling, it's consistent with the modeling. And then at the final, when they get the insulation completed, the drywall is done, they then go back and do a final blower door test to determine or if that building is still meeting those performance requirements.
right? And if it doesn't,
That's where the challenge comes in. That's one of the things we are going to have to put language into the bylaw on how to achieve that. It is minimum building code once it comes into effect, so we can't say otherwise. Essentially, some remediation would need to take place, and that can typically be achieved. It's usually air leakage where the issues are. And so that can be achieved by going through and sealing your penetrations in your electrical outlets, some of around your ducting, along those lines. Typically, the energy advisor would go around with a smoke machine and see where those leakages are happening, and then they would then remediate from there.
I've done it, not easy. Do we have a sense on how much this adds to construction costs? I know Leeds adds a ton of extra cost to a typical home.
Yes.
And when you get to net zero, that's extremely expensive. Like that's not cheap. I mean, then you get into passive houses and you're using those techniques, which is usually for a lot of rich people.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And right now, the province did do a cost analysis study for the
Of course they didn't.
mid-level steps. So step 4, they're saying it's construction cost increase from anywhere from 0.5% to 5%. How accurate those numbers are, I can't know. It is based off of their cost analysis study they did over the course of, I believe, about a year with multiple test homes being done by different contractors in different regions. So that's step 4. The higher level steps will be higher. Obviously, it'll be an increased construction cost, which is why they're not making that mandatory off the start. It will be 2032. From my understanding with conversations with the provinces, they're hoping that some of the costs associated with this do come down as the demand increases.
Right, Scott?
I love step code, so I'm the opposite way. I love it.
Yeah, but I'm on the other side of that one, but
But there are places, like there are builders that choose to take the energy advisor route because they can save a little bit of money on it if you on the building. So like, if you insulate, the basement, like the outside of the basement, then that gets you a little higher and that might save you something down the road. So there are ways to save money, and like some builders have picked up on that. And as you consider, a window package for your home and you're like, well, I'm going to go with the cheapest one, or I'm going to spend an extra $10,000 on windows. That'll get you a lot farther than some other things. But yeah, I think probably the cost is closer to 10% is what they say. It's 10% increase in cost. But the idea is then you save, 20-30% in energy costs over 20 years.
until your house is too tight and you have to put an exchange system or
And I think an exchange system will be the requirement. Yeah, it will be.
For step 4, yes, you need to have a HRV or similar system installed into your home to provide that mechanical ventilation.
Kenny or Scott, do we have any energy advisors in the area?
Yes, we do have a few there's one in town and then there's a couple in the surrounding regions.
Oh, there is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Dale is.
Oh, Dale is. I knew he was doing something, but I didn't know what it was.
It was our local energy advisor.
Oh, okay.
The majority of the builders, the majority of the larger developer contractors are actually using that service. So they are modeling their homes and doing blower door tests. There are rebates as well through the province to cover some of those costs. But yeah, most of the contractors currently are meeting approximately about step 4.
Okay. And also I was going to ask, is any of our local builders, have they been, they're, of course, everybody knows about this and it's coming. Have they been, reaching it to their clients, or do we need to educate them or bring them in for education, or we let the Shuswap construction industry do the education in the province?
So right now, majority of the contractors are well aware of the requirement coming into effect. This has been discussed going on 6 years now. So most of the contractors are currently looking at what's coming and are doing the floor door test to see what steps they're meeting. From my conversations with the majority of them, they are meeting either step 3 or step 4 as it sits currently.
Okay.
So I think there was a meeting in Salmon Arm about 2 years ago at the CSRD, and they had Shuswap construction industry professionals were invited, and I think there's probably about 80 builders from around the region there. So we've asked to be kept up to speed if any of that education is going to be happening. So I expect it will be, should be anyway. We could always host something as well. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's gonna be legislation, so I guess you gotta get online with it, or, you start educating and go through the public process. And so that's basically what we need today is a recommendation. Deb, did you have anything?
No, I agree with a lot of what Ian is saying, and so I guess I'm not a big fan of being on the bleeding edge of this sort of thing, but obviously we have to do whatever we need to do to get prepared for what is going to be required of us.
So implementation of, the public hearings and all that, when would be a good time to do it? In the winter, next fall, or like it's too late for this winter? Would you do it in the summertime?
So at this point, if council wants to opt into the implementation process, we have to notify the province, and then it begins that 6-month public consultation process from the date that we submit the documentation to the province with approvals from council. And from there on, then we do start those conversations with the public end to see if there is that interest. The process does take approximately about 6 months is the minimum requirement. So at this point, we're looking at implementation on a provincial level within this year. So it would be at this point, early adoption, we'd only be a couple months ahead of where it becomes minimum provincial legislation.
Mhm.
So if we wanted to start, if council does approve this, then it would be an immediate start the public consultation immediately to stick within those timelines.
Okay, go ahead, Darian.
I think we should wait for the province to do it. I mean, these programs, they're wonderful. They've been constructed in people's minds about a decade ago on how to actually, reduce climate change impacts from emissions from buildings. Wonderful. But what they've done now is they've escalated the cost of all new building. We're trying to do everything here at this point. Like, we're trying to tackle climate change. And I think, obviously sealing up buildings, yeah, that's a major contributor to greenhouse gases. But if people don't have any homes to live in that's affordable, then what's the bloody point, right? And this is where we're getting into this push and pull with the building code. We have all these housing objectives that we keep asking and wanting to achieve, but we are increasing the cost on the other hand, right? And I think, I don't know, I guess this is going to be my rant about the province again, because there's all these different elements that come down from the province that increases the load on a municipality, increases costs, increases all these things. Now you're going to have a certified energy consultant on new home constructions. And I get that builders are able to do that. But when you're talking about interfacing with all these new rules, if you're just trying to build something, that becomes a different thing than a developer doing it, right? Anyways, I'm just concerned about all these things layering on. You get to a point of where things are slow. You can't build housing efficiently or cheap enough that the average person can actually buy it. Like, building to a LEED standard or a passive house standard, and why I mentioned earlier, is for rich people, because it literally is for rich people. That's the only people that can afford it. And I think part of the conversation I would like to have is building code. This is the ship's already set sail with the province, is how are we going to take all of the stuff they want us to do, but still make housing affordable for ordinary, average people? Like, we're not trying to build a passive house, which is gonna be a lot more money, right? Somehow, I don't know, my priority is building more attainable housing rather than kind of the step code here at this point. So I think we'll wait for the province to tell us. If they don't even have the date, why should we be ahead of them?
Thanks.
Yeah.
Oh, Scott, you go ahead.
Sure, counterpoint.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I mean, in Europe, they're already doing this, right? And BC is like the leader in North America to implement this stuff. And I was on a building project for a new municipal building, and we wanted to build it to the step code. And the guys are doing like vapor barrier, which people understand it. And the architect came in, he's like, no, you have to do this. And I'm like, no, you don't. And he's like, yeah, you do. And they couldn't get their head around moving from vapor barrier to air. And they were like, this is going to take so much more time and blah, blah, blah. And the architect's like, in 2 years, this is going to be building code. Like, you're going to have to do this. And like, their eyes got big. We're like, we better learn this. And I think it's going to be hard, but I think builders will eventually learn. Instead of vapor barrier, they're doing air barrier, and the time that takes them to do it will go down, and the technology is going to catch up. And instead of one place that makes doors and windows, there's going to be 15 places. So I agree, it's going to be some growing pains, but I think the industry is going to catch up, and then BC is going to be teaching the rest of Canada and the rest of North America how to do it. And there's gonna be someone building doors in BC that's gonna be selling them to the rest of North America. So I think that's kind of like the big picture, but I agree, it's gonna be painful.
I'm not right there with you on that one, but.
Thanks, Scott. Sarah?
I would just add to that, like, it sounds like all our contractors, local contractors, developers are well aware that this is coming and are already ready. They're doing it already, but it's our homeowners that don't know anything about it. And the benefit of starting this process now and not waiting for the province is that we can start disseminating that information and educating people so that it's not some huge shock when the province finally does do this and people are caught unaware.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an opportunity to help smooth that over and connect people with all this free education that's out there.
Thanks, Sarah.
Fantastic.
Go ahead, Deb.
Yeah, just a follow-up comment. I agree with Ian on a lot of this, but I guess kind of a common sense kind of approach for me. Obviously, this is kind of a sidebar to what we're talking about here. But on Ian's point of, like this being for rich people, the people that would really benefit from some common sense energy efficiency are the poor people in town, because Sycamoose more than anywhere else is kind of held hostage to this whole idea of you can't heat your home affordably. There's just too few options. And I'm just wondering if there may be some kind of opportunity as part of this to really look at trying to make some suggestions for the people that already have built homes, built mobile homes, old, like that, like basically there's like the doors are open all the time for the amount of leakage there is, that if there's something we can do to actually make this beneficial to those sorts in terms of some low cost improvements and like, I don't know, some kind of grants or subsidies, or just a thought.
Interesting. Thanks, Deb. Any?
So there actually are quite a few provincial grant programs right now for upgrades of existing homes, like Deb is asking about. So through Clean BC, BC Hydro, Fortis has some that wouldn't necessarily be too applicable to us, but there are quite a few current provincial and federal grant programs for upgrades. One of them.
Yeah, and sorry. Yeah.
Go ahead, Deb.
Sorry, through the chair. Yeah, and I agree, but most of the people we're talking about don't have a clue about that stuff. I'm just thinking if, like there's the opportunity to actually support, help, whatever people in that area, like with, as part of a local program that, like we're talking about doing this step 3, moving up to step 5, if there's just some opportunities to do some a workshop, like whatever locally in terms of people and really getting the word out about it so that, to help them help themselves.
Okay,
Just a question.
oh, so go ahead, Ian.
So once we get into all of this and the province implements it, they decide when they want to implement it, because, I think we should not forget, they haven't set the date yet. So, like when we're talking about getting ahead of it, well, the province isn't even ahead of it. Like they haven't even set the date. So I think we should take that, and that's a bit of a message from the province in my mind as well. But are they, so will we be allowed to have a trailer, like a park model? Would that kind of meet the requirements going forward?
Well, park model would be a little bit on a different side of things. The BC building code doesn't actually apply to park models, but as far as like a modular home or pre-manufactured, yes. Essentially, they would just have to verify to us that they're meeting those higher steps. And currently there are quite a few jurisdictions surrounding us that are at those higher steps. And in the lower mainland, they're much higher on those steps as well. So a lot of the manufacturers have adapted to meet those requirements.
Kenny, how many, I guess we don't have to implement it till we do a bylaw, but just how many other small communities like ours are we behind? Are we ahead, or like?
It's about a mix right now. Some of the smaller municipalities are choosing to opt, as we currently have, to hold off until the provincial legislation comes into effect based on capacity of energy advisors. Until quite recently, most communities did not have energy advisors or access to energy advisors. They were reliant on the larger municipalities to supply that service. The larger businesses located in larger communities to supply those services. So there was an increased cost associated with that as well. So most smaller municipalities opted to wait. At this point, it's about a 50-50 currently. The province on the BC Energy Step Code, they do have a list of all of the municipalities that are currently opted into it and what step they are at, or whether they're just doing the consultation process, but it is a mix right now.
Okay, yeah, so I guess, it's council's final decision, but to get to that decision, they need to have public input to know, what the community thinks about it and the builders think about it and everything like that. So, yeah, it's something you gotta recommend to council that you have to go through the public process anyways, somehow. It's government legislation. But you don't have to implement the bylaw until, the province finally moves ahead and says, we're gonna go to step 3. Then you can implement the bylaw, but at least your homework's all done and the public's aware of it and the builders are aware of it. Does that make sense?
But we only have to go through it if we want to implement it early. They don't care about what our public consultation says. They're going to do this regardless. They want you to be an early adopter and kind of opt into it and say, see here, municipalities are fine with the step code thing. Well, I'm definitely not. But otherwise, they're going to impose it. That's up to the province to do that. They're not going to come back to us and say, hey, are you okay with this? No, not at all. So I guess what we're talking about here is, do we want to be ahead of that? They haven't set the date that they even want to implement this yet, because I'm sure people back in Victoria are looking at, oh my God, great, we're increasing housing costs at the time that we're trying to build affordable housing. I mean, this will have a lot of impact right across even all the stuff they want to do on their housing projects. So, I mean, I get why all this stuff is really important. I mean, we're trying to tackle climate change. It's real. I get it. But at the same time, when you're trying to do affordable housing, these programs aren't overly helpful in that regard. So my approach is, let's see what the province does. This is what I'm suggesting. See if they amend it, because they have a new premier as well. You don't actually know if they're going to implement this the way they say they are, things can change there too. EB now has decided that affordable housing is almost, target number one for their government. I just think there's a lot of moving parts going on about this whole kind of space, especially when we're talking about the debate about housing. It's something very, very,
Dear to your heart.
well, dear to my heart, but I think it's also something very active in terms of the discussion. So I'm not convinced that they're not going to change tax on this as well, if they're looking at the overall cost of housing, which this has an impact on.
Sarah, go ahead.
I have two comments. So one, if we choose to move forward earlier, maybe there's ways where we can start gradually implementing parts of the step code to transition to that level. And like maybe we have the opportunity to adopt step 3 now and start moving people from step 2 to there. And then once the code comes in, assuming it might be higher, the requirements, or is that an option? Step 3. We'll be coming to step 3, right? And so, and maybe because, it's not official legislation at the highest level, we would still have control over implementation of that and like where people need to meet, maybe they come part way to step 3. I don't know. My other comment is that our housing strategy, a very big component of it is wellness. And a key component of that is improving things like energy efficiency, so that when you move a low income family into a home, it's not some home that is going to cost them crazy amounts of money just to heat it in the winter because it's got all this heat loss. The idea is to put people into something they can actually afford, and they're not having to choose between buying groceries and their electricity bill, right? So just food for thought.
Up front or in the back, I guess, but.
Go ahead, John.
Could we possibly recommend as a committee, could we recommend this go to a public vote before it, or a public consultation first, see what the public's thinking on it? Because I'm kind of in between Ian and you guys on this one there. It's because I do agree that getting ahead of the game and getting the public, the knowledge out there to all the, not particularly the big builders, but the homeowners and stuff that are going to be looking at smaller ones, getting the information out to them sooner definitely is better if it's going to be legislated. I agree with that. But then on Ian's side, I do see where, this is going to bring some severe costs in, because I work in the industry and I do understand the cost of a lot of these things do exponentially go up, actually. Like the 10% even actually sounds low to me. Like, honestly, that does seem low when you're starting to talk about moving a building to up to an 80% efficiency. There's no way that's only 10% more. I'm sorry. That's out to lunch on that.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, is there some way we could bring this to the community and display this information to them before council actually has to make a full decision? Because you're gonna have a lot of people angry, I think, if you just go and say, no, this is happening early without some kind of public forum to let everybody know what we're considering there, because that is a big step.
Thanks, John. I think it's gotta go, it's not a planning committee decision, it's a council decision, and we have to get it to council for them to debate it. So, I don't have an issue putting it forward today, but we'll call the question, but a few more discussions here, I guess. Go ahead, Kenny.
Yeah, just to John's point there. So to the 0.5 to 5% that the province has done through their cost analysis is going to get to step 3. So that would be going from step 2 to step 3. Their cost analysis study do show obviously significantly increased costs getting up to those higher levels like passive or net zero. But at this point, they're just to get to the step 3, they're saying the difference between step 2 to step 3 is about 0.5 to 5%, which based on current construction practices, I would say that would be within about accurate for step 3. That honestly, most of the contractors currently are meeting that step 3 level, and you're not looking at changing too much on the building construction side of things. It would just be mechanical equipment that is typically the part that's going to be changing to get that step 3. So we'd be looking at getting away from propane and going towards the electrical, which is way the province is trying to go with the whole. They want to go through the clean energy, which propane is not listed as one of the options as clean energy. So in those higher steps, you would be looking at purely an electrical system for your house for heating, ventilation, everything. So that's one of the challenges that does come with this going forward, and at those higher steps that I want to make sure that everybody is aware of. There's definitely going to be those things, but to get to step 3 as it currently sits, it won't be that much of a real difference for the contractors. The homeowners, it does require more education and understanding of air sealing practices and how to seal all their penetrations. But step 3 is what I will call the easy one. It's step 4 and 5 and net zero, where you're getting to those much higher costs and different practices. The province did also just recently give us a little bit of a heads up that they are looking at including a potential prescriptive option in step 3, where essentially you now are required to have an HRV. But you would, if you were to install those systems and meet those levels, you wouldn't have to include the energy advisor at step 3. So they are considering that.
Scott, you're next.
Yeah, I think the goal of today was to introduce this to this group.
Yep.
And then I think we're planning on make the same presentation to council at the next committee of the whole. But yeah, good idea is like, let's hold some public information. Invite the builders here and give a little bit of a presentation and get some feedback that way. And then Kenny is working on a report for some changes to our building bylaws. So, maybe the next step is after we introduce this to council, we have a little bit of public information, and then we'll bring some changes to the building regulation or the building bylaw to this group and see how those look. And then, maybe in a month, we might have a better idea of what the province is thinking as well.
Sir, you had your hand up.
It's okay.
Oh, yours?
About some other things, I would just draw this out.
Okay.
I was just wondering if I like the idea of getting some builders in here and other, I think, before my opinion, sit on council, but so it can come to council, but it'd be nice for us to do a little more investigation. If a whole bunch of builders come in here and say it's no problem, which I don't think they're gonna say, but I know a few builders in Vancouver that have huge problems wondering about how they're going to do affordability. But I wonder from our perspective, if we can get a few builders even in town. I don't know if Brian's back yet, but even maybe a couple from the surrounding areas to come in and talk to us about this as well. And kind of the implications on housing. I'd like to know a little bit better. 0.05 to 5%, that's a pretty big range. If you put 5% on a housing building across versus 0.5, well, that's I don't know, quite a bit of money. So I'd like to see if we could maybe study it a little bit further and understand it a little bit further.
Well, I think, it does have to come to council, and Kenny's he's putting together a package for council. So I would make a recommendation that it comes to council and we discuss it and debate it and then move it forward from there. So is there any seconder on that one? Sure. Oh, Deb's gonna second it? Okay.
So what is the motion?
That it comes to council and council discusses the step code. It's just coming to council. That's all it's doing. Committee of the whole meeting.
That we're recommending that. So no, I'm just trying to figure out what the motion, so what are you?
We're not recommending it.
Okay.
It's recommending that it comes.
Oh, it just comes to council. Okay.
There wasn't a recommendation given to us, so it's just a recommendation that comes to council. You good with that, Katie? Deb, you okay with your second there? Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Okay. 3, 4, 1 against.
Yeah, I'll just say,
Okay, I know.
I'll just say that I think we could have done a little bit more here rather than put it to council, because that's all.
And I think what we'll do is we'll invite some of the builders to that meeting. And
Yeah.
let's invite the builders to the meeting and see if they can, weigh in on it. And the council gets to hear that from the builders, and it's just not, I'm not saying it's our decision to just kibosh it. It should go to council and at least have them debate it and talk about it. And if they say, you know what, forget it, we're not doing it. Then you got your marching orders, right? That sound good? Okay. All right, moving right along. What do we got next? We got 1226 Young Road. Who's got that one? Sarah? Great, thank you.
All right, so I believe that Scott Renaud should be online with us today. I understand he was invited. He may or may not have made it. I know it was a good call. Okay, it looks like maybe he wasn't able to make it. So this is for comments for Scott. So you're probably familiar with this property down by Red's Rentals, just. I believe it's dug up at the moment. So he does have a section 11 approval to replace his gabion basket wall, which is, you know, was in very poor condition. So he also needs a development permit from us and a building permit. So he has applied for a building permit. He has applied for a development permit. He needs some variances because of the size of the wall. It's a very small property. So he's looking to put in a lock block wall. So it doesn't fit within our criteria of our new zoning bylaws. So he does need some variances. Next slide, please. So this is the location. Next slide. It's the property is located in the town center. It has a brand new shiny zone of C3, which is kind of like a working marina slash tourist accommodation kind of zone. It's an interesting hybrid that takes advantage of the fact that it's by the water. The zoning on the water itself is actually W3, not W2. That's an error, which is a commercial marina zone. Next slide. So this is the site plan. It does show the old district lot on there, which actually doesn't exist anymore. It's gone now. So this is the property boundaries, and the wall will be just inside the parcel. And it will have a longer side up here. It's not interfering with this right of way, and a shorter one down here. They do have to put in about 1,000 millimeters. They need to do the math. It should be easy. Of riprap along the bottom. So they do need to come back a little bit, I think, potentially just to make room for that scour protection along there. But the wall is about 30.5 meters long, and it's about 4.5 meters high. He also will need to put in some temporary piles because this licensed area, it's partially been filled at some point historically. There is a gabion wall there, so he needs to put in a couple temporary piles to support that wall while they replace this one. So the development permit will speak to that. Next slide. So our new zoning bylaw allows a wall that is over 1.2 meters in height to be sited on a property minimum of 2 meters from the lot line. So this is going to be a lot closer, and staff's recommending that we just, you know, make it 0 rather than, because it will need to be fairly close. Maximum height. So the new zoning bylaw allows them to be up to 1.2 meters in height at a 0 lot line setback. So he needs a variance for that as well, to 4.5 meters. There is a railing, a safety railing on the top of the wall, but that's within the allowable height. Zoning bylaw. So you can see here, lock block wall, there's the riprap. It's about 1,000 millimeters. Yeah, the province is asking him to put in the riprap. Riprap and the wall, yeah, as part of his 10-year renewal. Because the existing one is in very poor condition. Safety hazard. Next slide. So here's some photos from before the work started. You can kind of see where the existing kind of marina is in there. He's going to have to be moving that out too. His 10-year agreement is up for that, and it grounds currently, so it will need to move out further. But he's waiting on that one because he really needs to be looking into archaeological and siting. He's not 100% sure of. There's a little bit of encroachment within the lease area from Reds, and so they're still kind of working through those things. So yes, see the current wall here, and you know the condition of support piers. There were some other photos that showed how the land was actually kind of falling through and, yeah. I believe that's it. I don't think I have any more.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Comments or feedback for the applicant?
Any comments from the floor? Deb, go ahead.
I guess my only comment is, I know how long some of these things can take. And it is all dug up. I'm assuming time is of the essence, because when the lake starts coming up, that's gonna turn into a big mess.
Yeah, thanks, Deb. Go ahead, Scott. For Sarah?
Through the chair. So they do have their section 11. So that they were diligent and they got working on that process and they do have that approval. They just don't have the districts, right? So that work can occur from January 1st and through to May 15th. It has to be done May 15th. So they do have a special approval to do this work during low water. Ordinarily, like if this wasn't like a disturbance of the lake bed type scenario, you would see this happening outside of the fish window normally. So they do have an environmental management plan that they have to follow to kind of limit any negative impacts on water quality or fish habitat. It is a spawning area and it is a migration route through the channel for adult and juvenile fish. So there are some implications. And I guess there's also painted turtles down there, which is, there are species at risk.
Surprising.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Deb.
Yeah, so good. So obviously we're going to do whatever we can here to try and expedite that. My other question is related to the whole wall, like, because it did come up that this was not like a good location for the walkway because it's too shallow and whatever. So I guess just as a committee, I just want to confirm that if we are approving this to go forward and it's assuming that the walkway is going to go down Young or whatever it is we've decided, that we're not setting some kind of precedent for the walkway in general.
Scott?
The Deb and Gord, you may remember, we did talk about this last year and for John and Ian. So Scott did bring this to us last year and we were talking about like a flood wall, like a flood wall that would go like the length of the channel. We identified from Finlayson to Main Street as kind of like the first section of it. But in the end, the funding wasn't there to do that part of the wall. So Scott was on board. He was like, yeah, I'll participate in your program. But that's probably not going to happen. And he really needs to fix this wall sooner rather than later. So yeah, unfortunately, the whole flood wall is, timing of it isn't going to work in the same timing that he needs to replace his wall. So there was a walkway that would be along there. And on this particular, on Young Crescent, it was identified to build the walkway on Young Crescent. So we do have a little bit of right of way there. And just talking to Scott on his contribution to that walkway, he's on board having it on Young, but he wants to wait until he actually develops the property. He has no plans to develop the property right now. So if they're looking at building something on the land instead of the foreshore, then he said he'd contribute to that walkway at that point.
Scott, can I add to that? Like when he said he would contribute to the walkway, he indicated that, and when we decided we were going to put the walkway on Young Street, he would donate the land on the east side of Young Street, which would kind of tie into our plans. I think. So are we going to take that 3 meters from him on this permit, or do we're going to wait?
We'll wait till he develops the land.
Okay. Yeah. No.
He's developing the land now.
Anybody else? Sorry, Deb, what'd you say?
Well, he is doing some development now, right? It's just, I guess I get a little nervous about the fact that we always seem to be putting off actually getting that entitlement set.
We can ask them for the right of way. if the committee wants to recommend that,
We're asking for 3 meters?
we can, yeah.
Do we need 3 meters for the walkway or? I know we needed 3 meters for the waterfront walkway. Everybody's been given 3 meters, but on Young Street, would you need 3 meters?
I think we have 3 meters on a property further down, like a 3 meter right away.
And is it on the east side or on the west side?
It's on the west side of Young. So in front, like between this property and Young, like it's on the west side of Young's.
Yeah, because I remember when we discussed this, we talked about the lots are so, the waterfront lots are so shallow that taking another 3 meters from them would be really difficult. There would be no land left hardly to do any development. If you take 3 meters from his lot, it's not a very big lot. So that's why he offered it on the other side. So that's what I was just curious. Ian?
Why don't we just wait and see what he plans to develop on the site, and then probably the best plan would come forward at that point. Rather than take the 3 meters from him now.
Yeah, he doesn't have a lot of land to take 3 meters on the waterfront lot. He owns a lot on the other side of the road too. So, that means you would have to take it from those other homes and businesses along there. And it ain't gonna happen for a long time, because I don't imagine Carroll's building's going anywhere for a while, that big boat shed. Right? But I recommend this goes ahead and but I don't really think, taking 3 meters from his waterfront lot is the key, the right thing to do, because his land, his lot is so small. And if we ever decide down the road that there is a walkway in front of the retaining walls, then maybe it should be 3 meters out into the channel and not 3 meters into the property,
That was the original plan to sheet pile outside of the walls, was it not?
Originally, when we talked about it with K&W, but yeah.
Is it part of the recommendation is that we take the 3 meters now, or?
So right now, we actually didn't put a recommendation in. We're still waiting for a little bit more information. We'd like to bring it to the committee if the committee wants to make a recommendation. And then depending on the timing of when we get information, we'd like to get this to council. So trying to expedite it. We brought it to you without a recommendation. So the planning and development committee can recommend support or not. And we didn't recommend the 3 meters at this time, just because I want to wait and see what he's doing on the upland. This is on the foreshore essentially, right? And it's not on the upland, so.
Mhm. Yeah. Kelly, do you have any comment?
Nope.
All right. No, I support this application as is, and if myself, so we need a motion. There's no motion here, but no recommendation.
If you want to make a recommendation to council, you can. If you want to just leave it as you want to speak to it when you're at council, that's fine too. Yeah.
Well, is he waiting on us for anything? I can't remember. I read that last night, but.
So he requires council to issue the development permit.
Oh.
He has started work and we've been working with him for a year, aware of what he needs to do, and he's been working with the province on getting what he needs done.
Okay, I would recommend that we move this forward. I mean, he's been working on this for a year.
Yeah, second.
Deb, do you agree too?
Yeah.
Okay, everybody's in favor? Yep. Yeah, we'll move this. I think we should move this forward to council. Okay,
This
thanks,
has
Scott.
to get done.
And we made we're making a recommendation to approve it to council.
Okay, let's make a recommendation.
I'll make that motion.
Ian made the motion, John seconded. All in favor? Carried. All right, great, thank you. The next one, the Fisher Community Plan. I just thought I'd throw this on the agenda that we could start talking about it, and Kelly and I kind of briefly discussed it, that, when it's been out there for what, 7 years now or 8 years? I think, I can't remember.
7.
2016.
And that was a big part of this, yeah. I think John was involved too at the beginning. So, yeah, it's, sometimes it looks like, there's a few things in there we could probably refresh. I was really referring us, to the waterfront stuff. Trying to eliminate the red tape, so I just thought I'd put it on the agenda and see what staff thought about, it would be wise to have a look at it again. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, Sarah and I definitely have had many conversations about changes that we would like to see. I think with the housing strategy and then with our parks and trails plans, we can probably add a little bit more into it. Some of the rules from the province have changed a little bit, so we can adjust things. Yeah, definitely. I guess maybe Sarah and I can put our heads together and come up with something maybe for the next planning and development committee meeting of changes that we're thinking about. I don't know if this will take more time than, or maybe we use this committee as kind of like a little workshop to talk about some of the issues, but definitely we've been talking about it and we can probably have something to this committee to talk about some of the things we're looking at as well, so.
Okay, well, that sounds like a good plan. I was kind of thinking too, that it can be done in-house and not go to a big contractor. Because you guys are familiar with the area and you're now comfortable with what's in the OCP, and yeah, we're a good committee to bounce things off.
Yep.
Deb, do you have any comment?
Yeah, I would just say that, you're right. Like typically they say the shelf life is about 5 years on these things. We're a little bit longer than that. But as we all know, these things can turn into, like a really, really big involved project too. I think that it's generally all right, but there's certainly some sections that need to be revisited. And, if staff can make some recommendations in terms of tweaking it, I think that would be great.
Okay, thanks, Deb. And then as for committee members, if you have time and you want to let some light reading, just kind of browse through it, and start getting up to date on it, because it is a big document. And yeah, we'll wait to get something back from you. Okay. Sounds good. Thanks, Scott and Sarah. All right, moving along, Crown Land. I asked Scott to put this one on there, and I just found something else the other day. Stephanie, can you bring up the map of the community?
Yeah.
Again, on our maps. And Siobhan called me about a piece of property. He was inquiring if it was in the boundary of the district, and I wasn't sure. I had no idea. And I'll have to look at it again. But I'll go over here. So
Per road.
Yeah, it's not down to Kerr Road. So, yeah, I'll just talk about it somewhere in here. It's a little bit further down. Stepford Road's here. She was inquiring about this property and she wanted to know if it was in the district. And I remember my buddy used to own this, Bruce Moores, and he always said it was Crown land. And I didn't know that. I thought it was belonged to the Ramsdales or somebody. But I think, is that Crown land,
Stephanie, if you open the CSRD map, we can find out. Our map only goes so far.
See, and it does have the same designation as the one beside Guy's place, Guy Mares. So it has doors.
It's partially in the ALR, but a big chunk isn't.
Anyway, I just thought I'd jog your guys' memory. Because the reason she brought it to my attention is it's up for logging. They're gonna log it completely. And that's why I figured it must be Crown land.
I sent you an email, Steffi, with I sent it just now with a drawing on it that shows the property. I talked to Siobhan about it yesterday. So
Okay.
if you
Okay.
open that email, we can.
What I was kind of getting at is if it's Crown land and it's in our community, and it should be nice to be, receiving taxes from it. So, you know, and it'd be another application, you make application in the Crown, to see if you can get it out of the Crown. Becomes, you know, if the district purchases and then it sells it. I'm not sure how that would work, but that's the same goes for the property between our place and Guy's place. And Guy wanted to buy it, but it has to come out of the Crown, so it has to go, you know, it should go. And the Crown people were kind of saying the only ways that would happen is if it went through the district, so.
Open your email.
I
That's just-
I have to update.
Your email?
No. Yeah, it is, but I have to update the whole thing. So I'm trying to bring it in through Teams and then share it. Just 2 minutes.
Just open it, your online account. Edge.
Well, aren't we making an application already?
Yeah.
On that other piece of crown land?
No. We
I thought we,
made
okay,
a recommendation and talked about looking into it, but that's why I was.
yeah, well, we're doing that, we might as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Meeting. About that. You can get some information in that. Talk about the finance.
Yeah, and what I also thought, Kelly, is, you know, if it's not a cumbersome or too big of a process, to have staff just kind of review all the land around the district. And see if there's other properties that are crown land that we don't even, like, most people don't know that that's crown land, or the one between my place and Guy's place.
Yeah.
It's crown land.
I'm gonna do it my.
How much crown land is there around here? Probably significant amount, right?
I think in the province, of British Columbia, only 4% of land is privately owned. So 96% of land in British Columbia, so.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, so that was something I was just thinking about, and just thought maybe, Scott, if you guys had time one day, just kind of do a review of all the bordering properties and see if they're crown land or you know, resource base of some sort. And then it'll come to our budget meetings and when we talk about land. And we can decide what to do with them. Or do nothing. So it's just something I had on my plate. Yeah, that's it. Anything else? Anybody else have anything on crown land?
Just forget that email up.
Oh, you're gonna get it? Oh,
Yes.
Oh, Sarah, go ahead.
Chair, I could mention, the housing committee did talk a fair bit about, it's an old road right of way that was meant for the 97A to run along the base of the mountain. That would have good connectivity with our neighborhood there. So looking into that to see if that's something the district could secure for housing.
Sorry, what are we talking about? Like along Highway 97A?
Do you know where Cherry or Cottonwood are?
Yeah,
It's along that neighborhood at the foot of the hill.
Yeah, originally the highways were planning on bringing Highway 97 all the way along the base of that whole mountain. So it'd go down through Cottonwood, right, you know, where you go by the Legacy.
oh, yeah,
Instead of it turning and coming down by the water.
Back to the map.
Right all the way across there. And
Yeah.
Right at that property.
is this what we're looking at here?
Go down to Cottonwood.
Down to Cottonwood and Highway 97A.
Yeah, it's right there. This guy's stepping.
Hmm.
Sorry,
And that's currently crown land.
it's road.
Oh. It's a
And
road
it's
wide
a
right
gray
away.
area as to whether or not it's ours or MOTI's.
Oh, good point. Really good point.
MOTI is no longer interested in it. Housing committee was talking about making it. Acquiring it, making it into a parcel, because it's road, it's not a parcel.
Yeah,
And doing some kind of community land trust with a co-op or
yeah,
some mixed densities, mixed development types on there.
okay, good. Well, that'd be another good one to add to the list. Thanks, sir. Okay,
This is the one that Siobhan was interested in, so that here's our border.
Mhm.
And they're talking about logging this one, and I think this is also a crown. Both those two.
Oh,
Okay. Yeah, so I think she's concerned about it being logged within the district of Sigamoose, and I know they've been doing lots of logging on Owlhead, and that's, I mean, there's some blotches, you can kind of see them. And you can see the ones on Mirror Lake for sure, but I think she was really concerned about this one. Okay. Anybody else have anything else on Crown Land? Great. Well, I guess we'll go to adjourn. Recommend that the Planning and Development Committee meeting of February 1st, 2023 adjourned at 10:13. Can I have a mover? John? Seconder Deb? All those in favor? Gary? Thanks very much. Thank you, Kenny, for your.
yeah, thanks, Kenny.
You want the cost analysis study?
Oh, I'd love to. Yeah.